Well, guys, we just finished our first race weekend with the RC10 B7. We went to two different tracks, a short, grippy track with, your regular buggy tires like fuzz bites, and then a larger indoor RC track that we ran slicks on. So a couple different setups, lots of different changes. Really, there was a couple major things, mostly me, that needs fixed. So let's talk about how the car performed, what I liked, what I didn't like, and what we need to improve on before next week. So I'm Chad, this is the Torque Game 40 RC channel. Welcome back. Here is the car in all of its glory. Right off the bat, one of the things that just made the whole experience more pleasurable is these new battery mounts that they have. Now, I had the O-ring system and everything like that on the 6.4, but it was still a huge pain in the ass because you lost the O-ring, and then the screws, the screws that held it in place flopped around and all kinds of stuff. So that was a big bummer. Really nice to have that actual battery mounting system now. One of the setups of this is I actually ended up doing is moving it forward all the way. Kit setup is back, I think, to the third or fourth notch that are underneath these rails here. Because like the B6, 4, and to me, they still haven't figured out the steering problem. So I needed to try to push things a little bit more forward, getting a lot of off power, pushing, coming back onto power. It wasn't bad on the grippy track with the regular tires, but with the slick tires, where the front ones are just so much bigger and taller and wider than a normal fuzz bite, we were getting a lot of push. So you would try to free up the front end a little bit and making things a little bit softer, and then that would in turn mess up your rear end. But all in all, we made very few changes and everything worked out great. Now, we did some practicing on Thursday. I went away from the kit settings as far as the diff goes, but pretty much built this thing to kit standard. So the first thing that I needed to do was I needed to go back to some more toe in. The 1 degree toe in just did not give me enough rotation around the corners. That combined with me putting 10K diff fluid in there with the 2 gears, thinking a 21.5 motor would still be able to rotate it. It was no rotation at all. It was diffing out and just slipping all over the place. So before we had our local race on Saturday, I threw the 4 gear in there, I redid the pills, and I also went up to the kit supplied 30K diff fluid. And everything performed great. I ended up going back to the smaller wing. I can't remember if this is the 6 or the 6.5. These are some J Concept wings that I had. I ended up going down 1 spring rate in the front in order to get a little bit more steering. Pretty much going along the lines again of what we've done with the 6.4. I had to remove these ball stud washers here, and I was going to space up the outside to try to get a little bit more steering, but I ended up having enough to just kind of make it work for the day and not throw a ton of changes at the car. Primarily, I'll be racing here locally. We race every 2 weeks. There's other local tracks that race kind of on the off weeks and stuff as well. And then the larger track that is starting off-road where we're running the slicks, they are going to be doing it. Maybe there's some months when they've got big events coming up that we won't even be racing this car. So I want the setup to work as close as possible at both places with not having to completely dismantle everything. One thing that did happen was the fan mount for the R1 fan broke. I've since seen that they have those on the website, and I had to order a couple of those. That obviously must be a part that breaks, so we got one of those coming. And then over the bumps and stuff like that, trying to clear some doubles, even with the 21.5 and not being super aggressive on punch settings and stuff, I found I just need a little bit more pop out of this car. So we're going to be going to a direct drive setup instead of using the slipper clutch, even though we've got lightweight slipper parts, we've got carbon fiber pads inside there. Instead instead of wasting the money on like vented slipper stuff and all that, we're just going to go direct power. Everybody pretty much is running it anyway, and it didn't really make that big a difference. On yesterday at the larger track where we've got video of, we went up to 60K on the diff, and that is definitely a lot thicker, and that definitely helped with, you know, the rotation on power. Of course, you know, when you thicken up your diff, you're going to lose off power steering. On power you get when you got thicker and you're driving on the front. You know, trying to break this all down from memory and stuff. Obviously, I'm not a professional and I am like a below average driver, but there's just no info out for this car. And, you know, there's just, for some reason, people don't put a lot of info out there for 17.5, 21.5 type of like local buggy racers. So that's what we're here to do. Try to help people out and grow things up a little bit. One thing that I'm just going to have to do, and it's just the way it is I'm going to have to pull the R1 ESC and all that stuff out of here. First of all, it's just dead weight. The ESC itself is, you know, I don't know how old the Mod 3 ESC is, at least 4 or 5 years old. It's a pretty big brick, and it's nice to have that weight up there, that's for sure. But what I would rather have is that weight underneath my battery for me, because it would just help stabilize the car a little bit for me. I noticed that on the grippy track, trying to like, you know, fix things with the rear end, you know, the carpet always comes up and like grabs you, you know, when you come off the features and stuff like that, and it definitely can unsettle the car. I found last year during off-road season, when I put weight underneath the battery, that really settled it. And I don't mind going like a little overweight, but if I leave this in here and throw in like a 30 gram, I think I got like a 36 gram, and I think they make a 48. I've got different ones, but I would like to throw as much weight underneath there as possible to help stabilize the car for me in my driving style right now. I think it's just going to help. So going to have to go back to like one of the hobby wings in here. The other thing is just, man, like, so, you know, the hobby wings are smaller, they're way lighter, they take up less of a footprint, and with the G2 now, I could put the logger in there, so I get automatic Bluetooth data logging and all that stuff, connect with the phone. I battled with Wi-Fi connectivity all weekends with this thing. Like, it reminded me of the drag car days, like trying to connect to the app and then the app crashing, and the iPhone Wi-Fi not wanting to connect. You know, it's just the way it is. The hobby wing technology with the Bluetooth OTA, I mean, it connects every time. There's like no issue. And it's just one thing that you don't want to deal with. I mean, of course, I'm going to be running all the rest of the stuff on the car. So, you know, big deal. But I tried it and, you know, it worked fine. It's just, for me, it's the weight penalty where I need to move the weight around on the car, and, you know, the connectivity when I'm making car settings and changes. Besides that, like, kind of the usual stuff happened. I don't know why, but I've seen this on a couple of people's cars that were also new this weekend. The factory team bell crank, no matter how, if you put these things together from the underneath side, you're going to get these screws like back out no matter what. You pretty much need to use, I think, like red thread locker underneath there to keep that stuff from backing out. So I had a race go bad because of that. I put 6.4 shock protectors on here. They actually fit instead of the larger B7 one to go with the inverted upside down shocks. I don't really know if that's helping me at all right now. It's nice to have the extra weight down a little bit lower, but it's a pain in the butt to adjust ride height, and going from track to track, definitely have to adjust the ride height because these tires are like 4 or 5 millimeters taller than the other ones that we run. And I think that's one of the things that I really didn't get to try this week, was to kind of like see how this ran at the track we'll have the video of. With the taller tires, if the lower actual buggy ride height is kind of hurting you more than helping you. I don't know. it looked to me like most of the people's cars that we were racing with this weekend, coming down the straight on the big sweeper, every one of them was pushing. And a lot of them did have problems with off power steering, but a few cars like just were able to nail it. And you know, some of these guys are touring car drivers who never drove buggy before, I believe, Andy, but like, you know, his car carved that corner and was able to come back the other way through the hairpins over the rumble strips just perfectly every time. And the other guys that were racing do that like out of memory 99.99% of the time with their touring cars, but they were struggling with their buggies as well with some push. And so we're just trying to figure out that. Kit setting is KPI 2. KPI, they talk about getting a 1-to-1 steering feel, and when you go up to like KPI 3, the higher you go up, the more on-power steering, mid-corner and stuff you're supposed to get, not entry. I think I need more entry, and I think I'm okay. So I don't want to like go up to KPI 3 in order to help the mid and exit corner steering and overcompensate for that when I really am okay with that. I just need the entry and the off power. Maybe I try adding some drag brake, but I just like to keep the car rolling. That's just kind of how I'm trying to learn how to drive and use finger brake a little bit, but maybe it was something that we could have added this weekend. The servo, we were running at 7.4 volts. It got a little bit twitchy on me on the smaller track, and I was able to just cut down with the feeling setting on the Sanwa, so that way I wasn't so abrupt and everything, and that turned out great. I guess the benefit is that at the beginning, I got better every heat, and I got faster every heat. Every setup change that I made didn't hurt me. Everything either stayed okay or got like a tenth or half a tenth faster. So that was good to see that like there's kind of a big tuning window for everything. The problem is my consistency being in like the 80s and high 70s is not good. That's not going to get you anywhere near a podium with any of the people that I'm with. So I've got work to do. I think the car is okay, and we'll be all right once we get some things kind of changed around and switched around and get out there and practice a little bit more. So I'm going to put a little bit of clips from the race that we had. It was a great time. You'll see the ending. If you want to see anything fun, go to the ending. I'll probably actually repost the race again just for my friends and to watch, or whoever else, because it was a lot of fun. So that's the final race report on the B7 for this past weekend. It was a great time. That's all that matters. Love y'all. Peace.